Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Super-Fanta-Fi. This being a show where we talk about TV shows of the supernatural, fantasy, and or science fictional genre. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about Kung Fu Season 3, Episode 10. A lot of really interesting things went down in this episode, so let's break it down. So we're immediately picking up with Nikki locked up, and she kind of finds this Zen place. And it was almost, it's not quite the same, but even I kind of felt like, okay, it's almost feeling like you're trying to escape everything, because it's like, yeah, there's been just so much hurt and pain she's kind of been dealing with, and now she found like this tranquil place, which is, it's nice, but it's kind of a temporary solution. It's a band-aid for a situation, because Nikki kind of finally, especially with Pei Ling's help, kind of finally sees the circumstances for what they were. The fact is, she was so happy to have Pei Ling back that she went above and beyond trying to hold on so tight to that she was blinded. She didn't see Bo for what he really is. She missed a lot of stuff. And because she was consumed by that hurt when it came to Bo, when she saw a side of herself, a violent side of herself, she never knew was a part of herself, that the moment that happened, she once again tried to overcorrect, and she even said it herself, she rushed. Like, how she handled things last episode, she shouldn't have done things like that. She shouldn't have been like, all right, like, things wouldn't have escalated to this point if she had just snuck out, but she wanted to get every name on that list, and it's like she wanted to do everything all at once, you know? So if they had probably taken like a step back, if she had taken a step back, maybe things wouldn't be exactly where they are, so. However, Nikki isn't getting arraigned. I figured as much, just because, like, well, they already set it up last episode that Dennis and Althea are going to have to go to Dennis's parents for help. And it's especially in this case where, like, they're going to need a lot of money to get her bail. Wanted like $250,000 or something like that was going to be her bail, because it's like got to be like 10% or something like that. So Dennis and Althea already kind of pulled the trigger on it, and you know, because Jin and Mei Li were trying to gather whatever money they could, but it's like, no, Dennis and Dennis's parents got it, because it's like, hey, like, the fact is, this is your daughter we're talking about, and you guys have been such a big part of Dennis's life, so of course we're going to help you out. Plus, it doesn't hurt that the fact is now they can seem like, you know, Dennis is in this complicated spot with his parents, and maybe we'll dive into this a little bit more later on, where it's like, yeah, he's kind of indebted to them in this regard. So, you know, we'll see whether there ends up being a continuous thing from this, because later on they need even more money, and it's like, okay, what's going on in this family? Because they're asking questions, and it's like Mei Li's beating around the bush. She's like, we, and Dennis is like, we fight crime, and it's like, yeah, that's kind of what happens. And so it's like Dennis's family, like, obviously Dennis is like, me and my parents are gonna have to sit down and kind of talk about all of this, but they're kind of on board right now, because they end up finding out that after Nikki's situation last episode, David moved all like the mainframe related stuff about the algorithm and stuff. He moved it to this like place that he's gathering all these investors and stuff. And obviously Nikki's now, the bail was paid, but she's on house arrest, so she can't do anything. But the team is still working together to try and stop Delta Security. So they had to send someone undercover. I thought from the beginning they were going to go more the Jilin route, because she shows up. But obviously she's mainly trying to get her sister back, stopping Zhao. So, which I love that she was like, oh yeah, I showed up to gloat. It's like, yeah, the shoe's on the other foot now. I was a criminal for such a long time, but now you're the criminal, Nikki Shin. So it's like, obviously she didn't really lean into it like she could have. Older Jilin wouldn't have, like, I mean, Jilin in the past would have never been in a situation to show up here and be all friendly regardless, but she definitely would have, like, I love how petty she is. That it's like, yeah, it's Jilin, it's her kind of twisted sense of humor, but still, her kind of getting on Nikki's case a little bit about that. But out of anyone, Althea's the one that had to go undercover. I mean, her and Dennis have gone undercover before, but, you know, Dennis is a terrible liar, so Althea, she's like, also with all this, PI work, she's like, I found out I'm actually a really good liar and stuff. It's like, yeah, plus, once again, they did some undercover work in season 2, so it's not like this is a complete and utter, stretch, so they end up kind of creating an alias for her. And what worries Nikki is like, normally it's like, right, anytime Althea might be in a situation, she's not too far off. Like, I'm there to protect you, but like, there's no one that's going to be there to have Althea's back, because she kind of has to go in here alone, you know, to kind of continue like that and keep up with this alias. And obviously it's like a team effort of just creating the alias and the backstory. So, because this is all about getting close to David, the CEO of Delta Securities, his brother Matt, because his brother Matt's been in the shadows. He's the one that kind of built the infrastructure. Once again, he's the actual architect of this whole thing, whereas David's just the face of the operation. So I wasn't expecting that story to turn out the way it did. I guess because I know, like, right, they were going to get close to Matt just to get the algorithm. I don't know why in my head I thought they were going to try and convince Matt. Like, this is just me. The show didn't say this. It's just, for whatever reason, I had it in my head, like, okay, maybe not necessarily that they were going to convince Matt to betray his brother, but I wasn't expecting Matt to be so sold on like we're going to gather all this data about people. It's like, my algorithm's going to know everything about everyone, and then we're going to be able to sell this algorithm and all of this like private security stuff. Like, we'll be able to sell it to people for a lot of money. And I mean, he built the algorithm and stuff. I always think about it like in that genius type of way of like, oh, you build something and you just never. I thought maybe he built it and his brother kind of handling it the way he did was like, yeah, that's my brother. I have no interest in that. It seemed like, no, he's interested in getting paid for it. You know, I don't know whether he looks at it. It's like, I don't know if he looks at it altruistically, like, oh, we're going to do so much good. It's like, because even David wanted to give that spin last episode, but Nikki was like, no, that's BS. You're a numbers guy. You're a money guy. Like, that's what this is all about. Seems like Matt's the same way. I thought maybe, once again, his baby was kind of taken from him and done with like, he didn't agree with it. It's like, no, he agrees with it and he's fine with it. So, obviously, Althea, you know, poor Althea, like when, all of them are gathering up and they're going to go hunting, and she's like, dear, as in like, she's like, I am not going to shoot Bambi, Nikki. It's like, oh, poor Althea. But luckily she was able to talk her way out of that, and her attempts to kind of reach out to Matt didn't work. So, Nikki pulled a trump card, and that was, Jilan showing up as Teresa, her character's sister, who's like, oh, I'm the face of this operation. How dare you? Like, ends up slapping her and everything. But I love what offended Althea the most is like, she came here and like outshined me, like, clothing wise. Because I'm sure Althea's like, no. This is kind of one of my wheelhouses. And Jilan kind of, you know, it's like not only did she come here and slap me, which it sucks, but it's like, yeah, but she also kind of had to outshine me, like, fashion-wise, too, so. I don't ever talk about that enough, but it's like, Jilan, like, dresses very fashionably, too. Like, when you think about, like, her. I mean, I guess it's like you always have to present yourself a certain. Well, I'm trying to think, like, you know, even before all this, like, when we saw some of the past stuff with, when Paling, like, reached out to her after all those years, it's like, she, you know, I mean, didn't she have, like, a more corporate job? I don't remember now. I think she had a more corporate job before, obviously, all this, before she went on her path of revenge and destruction. Either way, I did think it was an interesting development where, like, Matt's, like, showing off the algorithm. He's like, we could go sell it. You know, it's like, the fact is I found a kindred spirit. And I was like, bro, we've only known each other a couple hours and you already want to take me off with you to a jet so we can sell this together? Like, we're kindred spirits? I'm like, oh, I was like, that comes off super creepy. The fact is you so gung-ho about it. It's like, but my bag says like, don't worry, we packed them already. It's like, and they're already on a plane. I was like, yo, bro, you were moving super fast. Once again, it's not like, oh, we've only known each other for a day and a week. It's like, no, we've literally known each other for a couple hours, homie, you know? But also, like, she's the techie person, too, so him being able to kind of really talk to someone about it, but also feeling like, hey, I'm being overshadowed by my sibling, who's kind of the face of things, but I'm not, that I don't get the credit for what I built. Like, I get it. He felt so alone, and he finally found somebody. That was kind of the rub of it all, where Althea felt like she failed. It's like, yeah, no one could have seen this coming, that he would end up falling for you, which even Nikki's like, yeah, that just means you're just really, really good at what you did. We never accounted for the fact is you'd be so good at this, but maybe it's a combination of she's so good at it and Matt's so, isolated and so alone because he felt like no one saw him because no one knew him. So for someone to be like, hey, Matt, I know you're the one behind this algorithm and stuff, and I know what it's like to be in your situation, and that it just, and I guess, David probably ripped him a new one for being like, oh, you're so stupid. How could you let someone manipulate you like that? It's like, yeah, bro. He told, it's like, okay, you're definitely staying in your room from now on. I'm going to keep you isolated. This is all on you type of situation. So we'll see how that ultimately ends up fanning out for them in the long run. And David obviously ended up finding out about Jilon because he ran her prints, because it was just kind of like, yeah, the last second investor, all of this stuff, and especially because he knows his biggest weakness is his brother, and he knows his brother's weaknesses. So he knew, like, all right, this person's getting very close to Matt, this last minute investor. It's like something, I don't think he ever found out about. He knew Althea wasn't Althea, but he knew when moment he found out about Jilon, it's like, I don't know if he never said anything about Althea, so he probably never figured out that she was Nikki. So maybe he did. They just never made a dialogue point about it. But I do appreciate they're not knowing oh, you don't know who you're messing with. It's like, oh, take her out there to get killed, and Jilon took everyone down. And I do love the hesitation when she had the gun on the guy, and she's kind of like, oh, and just kind of pistol whips him. I'm like, yeah, you're a good guy now. So no, just killing people, because you in the past would have just slaughtered everyone in that room. But it's like, oh, even saying later on, it's like, yeah, I did kill anyone. Well, I mean, there was that one guy I might have, but it's like, obviously, once again, her twisted sense of humor. I'm also always surprised when they end up making certain people be able to not necessarily fight. I mean, David was straight up ready to kill Jilon because he pulled out a knife, he was ready to stab her. But he also put up not a decent fight, but it's just I wasn't expecting you kind of being able to fight back at all. I thought you just kind of, but I guess it's maybe he's decently trained and know how to fight. I did appreciate Althea being able to kind of hit him with that. The need to the face or whatever, because she made a whole point to Nikki. It's like, no, I know our training hasn't really continued, but she's like, there's that, I did, it has shown results. She's like, yeah, you kicked a thief that one time. She's like, yeah, but you weren't there. It was a really good kick. It's like, yes, it was. I remember wasn't that in the premiere of this season where it's like, yeah, her and Ryan were super hyped up about what each of them did. It's like, oh, that was sick. Oh no, that was sick on your part. I love that they were each other's biggest fans in that moment. Either way. So, luckily, they ended up getting the copy of the algorithm, gave it to the DA. Now it's like, cool, while you're going after Delta Securities, maybe you can use this opportunity to kind of leverage Delta into dropping the charges against Nikki, which I was like, there's no way we're done with this Delta thing, right? Is that really going to be that easy? Are they going to just roll over that? I'd also be concerned about who, we already know they're blackmailing Anthony, so the DA might have some dirt of her own that they might use to kind of come after her. So that's why I'm almost that's what because I wasn't expecting oh, Nikki's going to go to trial or anything. It's no, there's only probably 3 episodes after this left in the season, and I was like, there's no way they're going to get to that, because obviously it could take years to get to a trial and stuff. So part of me was wondering would that be something you see in the future? It's kind of what I was talking about last episode, but I don't know. I mean, the charges probably will ultimately get dropped, maybe, but I just feel is it really just going to be that simple? I mean, we're not done with Delta Securities, but they're being backed into a corner to some extent, but we'll see if that kind of stays. Obviously, it seems like we're obviously going back and focusing on the Jilon stuff. Not Jilon, Zhao, the Zhao stuff, because another part of this episode was her and Henry working together. Which I love that it's like, oh wow, you know something. She's like, oh, you know all this stuff. She's like, I thought you only knew about books. And even when she's like, oh yeah, I was reading this thing, and Henry's like, what? A book? And she just kind of gave him that death stare. So seeing them kind of once again be this team is kind of interesting, without Nikki kind of being that buffer, but just seeing them kind of, all right, I'll show you yours, I'll show you mine if you show me yours type of situation. So So ultimately, they found out where Zhao, because Zhao's been making a whole bunch of trips. That's where Jilan was kind of following her, but kind of lost track of her because she was still moving so fast. And it turns out that she was going after some very specific mines and stuff. One seemed like it was like a lithium mine, but it turns out there's actually Jushao it's a mine full of that, which are like interesting bringing that back. But it's like, what purpose? Like, is she gathering that up for something? It's like, well, we know she needed it for the whole hybrid situation, but I'm like, beyond that, I mean, there's still sources of power. So I was like, did she? I was like, well, she did get all of like the warriors and ancestors, the warriors and guardians. Like, she has all of them now. So I was like, would there be anything else she would need? Like, what would it? I mean, I guess it's like, right, you're already pretty strong, but I'm like, would you want to go like full god power mode, like Russell Tan last season? Like, well, what are you aiming for? But we see that there's a very specific rock she was looking for, and inside of it was some kind of device. She ended up killing everyone there because it's like, yeah, good job on you, but I don't need any witnesses around. So what I thought was interesting too is when she picked up the device, we do see, like, instead of looking like Pei Ling in that moment, she looked like her original body, which part of me wonders is like, is that what this is all about? Is this about you potentially getting your original body back? Is that what we're kind of going for here? Maybe, maybe not. This is kind of, I mean, well, to be fair, there's always been the mystical, obviously, artifact side of, like, the show. But I was about to say, because it's like, right, especially this season, because it's like the compass, the lodestone, all that stuff with Henry, plus the necklace that Pei Ling showed up with that's connected to Zhao and stuff, that obviously let her draw in the souls and powers of the warrior bloodline and the guardians. So I'm wondering what this will do for her, what she needs it for. Also, this is our first time seeing her power, right? Like, what she's fully capable of to some extent. The fact that she was teleporting all over the place is like, well, we know she's a traveler, but I'm assuming that's just straight up because of all that power gave her, once again, kind of godlike power. So that's why, I guess now she has the power to not have to worry about, like, because obviously you could travel to another world, because God, it's been a little while now, so I'm like, they can use their power like that, right? They can just, like, straight up, not just having to travel from, like, long distances into other worlds. They could use it to actually travel, like, teleport, can't they? Like, if they have better control over it. Maybe, maybe not. Like, I feel like that's not the case. Once again, there's been such a big break between the episodes, I don't remember. I mean, between last episode and obviously, like, between episode 8 and 9 is what I'm saying. So I'm like, I don't remember how that 100% works now. It's kind of slipped my mind. So do correct me in the comments down below. But I'm like, doesn't it? I don't, like, it, fact that she's using it like that, I don't know. Well, I mean, I'm such an idiot. It could just be like, right, she's popping into another dimension, another world, and then popping back into this one in a different spot. So that might be the more, like, exactly how that works. Maybe it isn't just simple teleportation. Maybe it's like, oh, I'm teleporting to this world and then teleporting back, which is technically simple teleportation. You get what I'm trying to say, hopefully. I don't know. We'll have to wait to see how that ultimately plays out. It's going to be hard to kind of get a grasp on her if she's, for one, super strong as she is, plus having that ability, and just that kind of is going to make her character a little broken. I am curious what's going to happen with the bow side of things. Last time we heard was last episode where it turns out, like, oh, he woke up from his coma, so it's like he's at least awake and conscious on that front. But beyond that, I think Nikki's going to need clarity in many different regards for that. So we'll have to wait and see how that plays out as well. But it's definitely going to be interesting to see where the next episode takes us going forward with all of this. But really, that's all I'm going to talk about. Until the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day, and goodbye.